Every legend has a beginning. Some begin with fame, others begin with fear. December 20th, Northern California. It was a cold Friday night. Quiet, peaceful, ordinary. At least, that's how it seemed. On a lonely road called Lake Herman Road, two teenagers were spending the evening together. Their names were David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen. They weren't criminals. They weren't running from anyone. They were simply two young people, enjoying what they thought would be another normal night. They parked their car in a quiet lover's lane. They talked. They laughed. They made plans for the future. Then, another car arrived. It stopped, behind them. Nobody knows what happened next. No witnesses, no cameras, no recordings. Only the evidence left behind. Investigators believe the driver stepped out, walked toward the couple, calmly, silently. Then, gunfire. David Faraday died beside the car. Betty Lou Jensen ran for her life. She never escaped. Her body was found dozens of feet away, shot while trying to flee. When police arrived, nothing made sense. There was no robbery, no clear motive, no suspect. Just two young victims lying in the darkness. Detectives believed they were investigating a terrible murder. They had no idea they were actually witnessing the birth of one of the most infamous serial killers in American history.
7 months passed. The investigation went nowhere. There were no arrests, no suspects, and slowly people forgot. But someone never did. July 4th. While America celebrated Independence Day, another young couple sat inside a parked car. Their names were Darlene Ferrin and Michael Mageau. It was just after midnight. The parking lot was almost empty. Then, headlights appeared. A car entered the lot. It stopped behind them. For a few seconds, nothing happened. Then, it drove away. Michael relaxed. He thought whoever it was had left. But minutes later, the headlights returned. The same car, the same driver. This time, he parked directly behind them. A man stepped out. He carried a flashlight. The bright light filled the inside of the car. Michael thought it was a police officer. He couldn't have been more wrong. Without saying a word, the man raised a pistol and fired. Glass exploded. Bullets tore through the car. Darlene screamed. Michael fell into the seat. The gunman turned and walked away. Then he heard movement. Michael was still alive. The man came back, fired again. Slowly, he returned to his car and disappeared into the night. Against all odds, Michael survived. He became the first person to describe the killer. Less than an hour later, the phone rang inside the Vallejo Police Department. A calm voice said,
"I want to report a double murder."
Then, the caller added something that froze the room.
"If you will go 1 mile east on Columbus Parkway, you will find the kids in a brown car."
A pause. Then,
"I also killed those kids last year."
click. The line went dead. In that moment, investigators realized the murders on Lake Herman Road were never random. They were hunting a serial killer, but they still had no name, no face, no idea that within weeks, the killer himself would introduce himself to the entire world. 4 weeks after the attack, everything changed. On August 1st, 1969, 3 newspapers received 3 nearly identical letters. One arrived at the Vallejo Times-Herald, another at the San Francisco Examiner, and the third at the San Francisco Chronicle. Each envelope contained a handwritten message and something else, a cryptogram, 408 symbols. The writer claimed responsibility for both attacks, but he didn't stop there. He made a demand. Print these letters on your front page, or I will go on a killing spree and murder a dozen people over the weekend. The newspapers faced an impossible decision. If they published the letters, they would give a murderer exactly what he wanted. If they refused, innocent people might die. They chose to publish them. The letters spread across California. Thousands of people stared at the strange symbols, wondering what they meant. Police officers, code breakers, professors, and ordinary citizens all tried to solve the cipher. Days later, another letter arrived. This one was much shorter. It contained just 8 words.
This is the Zodiac speaking.
It was the first time the killer gave himself a name. From that moment, he was no longer an unknown murderer. He had become the Zodiac, a name the world would never forget. The cipher was everywhere. Newspapers, television, police stations, thousands of people tried to solve it. None of them could. Days turned into weeks. The symbols refused to reveal their secret. Then, nearly 400 miles away, a schoolteacher and his wife decided to try. Donald and Betty Harden weren't professional codebreakers. They weren't FBI agents. They were simply curious. Betty noticed that most people begin writing about themselves using the word
I.
It was a simple idea, but it changed everything. Piece by piece, the symbols began to make sense. Line by line, a message appeared. It read,
I like killing people because it is so much fun.
The words became darker, more disturbing. The writer claimed that collecting victims would give him slaves in the afterlife. Investigators were stunned. The cipher had finally been broken. But something was missing. The newspapers had expected one final answer, the killer's name. It wasn't there. Instead, the message ended with 18 strange characters, random letters, meaningless, at least to this day. The Zodiac had given the world exactly what he wanted: fear, attention, and one more mystery that nobody could explain. But he wasn't finished. His most terrifying attack was still to come. September 27th. Another quiet evening. Another young couple. This time at Lake Berryessa. Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepherd were enjoying a peaceful afternoon beside the lake. The sun was beginning to set. Everything felt normal. Then, Cecilia looked up. A man was walking toward them, slowly, calmly. He wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He wanted to be seen. He wore a black executioner's hood, covering his entire face. Across his chest was a strange white symbol, a circle crossed by 2 lines, the same symbol that had appeared in the letters. Brian believed they were being robbed. The stranger spoke quietly. He claimed he was an escaped prisoner. He said he only wanted their money and their car. Brian believed him. Cecilia did too. They followed every instruction. The man tied them up, carefully, patiently. Then everything changed. He reached into his pocket, not for a gun, but for a knife. Without warning, he began stabbing them, again and again and again. Brian counted each strike. Cecilia screamed. Then, silence. Before leaving, the attacker walked to Brian's car. Using a black marker, he wrote the dates of his previous attacks, and beneath them, one final word: Zodiac. It was his signature. For the first time, investigators knew beyond any doubt they were chasing the same man. But he still wasn't finished. His boldest crime was only weeks away. October 11th, San Francisco, 9:55 p.m. The city was alive.
Cars filled the streets, restaurants were busy, people walked home without fear. Paul Stein had no idea this would be his last passenger. A man entered the taxi. He gave an address. The cab disappeared into the night. Minutes later, it stopped in an upscale neighborhood. There was no argument, no struggle, then a single gunshot. Paul Stein died instantly. But the killer didn't run. He stayed. Calmly, he searched the driver's pockets. He removed the car keys, a piece of Paul's blood-stained shirt. Then he simply walked away. 3 teenagers watched everything from the window of a nearby house. They immediately called the police. Officers rushed to the scene, but then something unbelievable happened. A police broadcast described the suspect incorrectly. Officers were told to look for a black male. The Zodiac was white. Moments later, 2 officers reportedly passed a man calmly walking away from the crime scene. They let him go. They believed he couldn't be the killer. It was one of the biggest mistakes in the investigation. Days later, another letter arrived. Inside was a piece of Paul Stein's shirt. There was no longer any doubt. The writer was the murderer. And now he was proving he could kill in the heart of a major city and disappear without a trace. The hunt had become a nightmare. By now, every newspaper knew his name. Every police department wanted his face. But no one knew who he was. Detectives chased hundreds of leads, every letter, every fingerprint, every witness, every suspect. Nothing was enough. Then, one name kept returning. Arthur Lee Allen, a former schoolteacher, intelligent, quiet, strange. Some people believed he was capable of murder. Others thought he was simply an easy target. Police searched his home more than once. They found weapons, bomb-making materials, and a Zodiac watch. The logo looked almost identical to the symbol used by the killer. For many investigators, it felt too perfect. But investigations are not built on feelings. They are built on evidence. Fingerprints did not match. Handwriting did not match. DNA failed to identify him. Despite years of investigation, police could never prove Arthur Lee Allen was Zodiac, and so the mystery continued. Every promising lead ended the same way. Another dead end, another question without an answer. It seemed the Zodiac had planned every move years in advance. For decades, the Zodiac remained silent. His letters stopped. The murders stopped, but the mystery never did. Hidden among his messages was another cipher, much shorter, much harder, 340 symbols, the Z340. Experts tried everything: the FBI, military cryptographers, universities, amateur codebreakers. Decades passed. Nothing worked. The Zodiac had won, or so it seemed. Then, in December 2020, more than 50 years later, 3 codebreakers from 3 different countries finally solved it. The message wasn't a confession. It wasn't his identity. It was another game. Another attempt to frighten anyone who was reading. Even after half a century, he was still controlling the conversation. Today, the Zodiac case remains officially unsolved. Thousands of pages of evidence, hundreds of suspects, countless theories, but no definitive answer. Was Arthur Lee Allen really the killer? Or was the real Zodiac someone whose name has never appeared in any police file? Perhaps we will never know, and maybe that's exactly what he wanted. Not just to kill, but to be remembered. More than half a century later, he still is. The murders became history, the letters became evidence, the ciphers became legend.
But the man behind the name Zodiac remains a ghost, waiting for someone to finally uncover the truth. Or perhaps the truth died with him, fade to black.